Fall has come and gone, and there is a chill in the air that makes hearty plates of comfort food the perfect choice for a satisfying dinner. Take this slow braised pork chop with all the warm spices and flavors of the season, paired with a creamy yet still curiously healthy whipped sweet potato. Save some time and money, and skip the roast and fancy sides this holiday season and indulge in this perfect plate. We'll begin with our largest braising dish or pot, add in a couple tablespoons of olive oil, and add our pork chops. We're going to overcrowd this pan a little bit, but that's fine because this is going to be a long, slow cooking process. I do also want to mention you want to use bone-in, kind of sirloin cut chops, using a center cut pork chop. It's really too lean for this preparation, and it's just going to kind of get dry and stringy. So with that said, go ahead and season that up with salt and pepper, and we're going to chop up about a tablespoon of fresh sage, about half a tablespoon of fresh rosemary. Our other aromatic components here will be half of a diced white onion. You can use a whole one if it's small or medium sized. It's going to break down and cook down in the sauce. And one Granny Smith apple. We want to go ahead and get that peel off, as that does not really break down, and go ahead and cut that into about ½ dice. Once your pork is nicely browned or has a little bit of color on that first side, go ahead and give it a flip over. All that marrow and fat around the bone is really going to add an unctuous flavor to our final glaze or sauce. Make sure you go ahead and season up that second side as well. We don't want bland food around here. And we're going to go ahead and put in a few other herbs and spices here. Putting down a little bit of garlic powder, probably half a teaspoon, and about half a teaspoon of allspice. This has a lot of really nice, warm, mellow spices that really just remind you of the holiday season and cozy food on cool nights. Go ahead and sprinkle in those onions and the diced apples. Try not to let any get away like I did. Go ahead and go in with your fresh herbs. I really do like having fresh herbs in here, but if all you have is dried, that's certainly fine. Now, our key ingredient here is some good apple cider, not apple juice. You want to go in with about a cup of apple cider, along with about half a cup of chicken broth or chicken stock to thin it out, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of soy sauce for a nice umami flavor punch. Bring this up to a simmer, go ahead and lid it up, and then reduce the heat to low and let it cook for at least an hour and a half, up to 2 to 2.5 hours depending on the size of your pork. While that slowly simmers away, we can turn our attention to this whipped sweet potato dish. So I've got 2 to 3 large sweet potatoes here, which I am going to peel and cut into evenly sized pieces. Doesn't really matter how big or how small you cut them, just try and cut them evenly so they will cook evenly in our cooking liquid, which is just plain water. Once all of your sweet potatoes are in there, give it a nice seasoning with salt, lid on, bring to a boil or simmer, and cook until the sweet potatoes are tender to a fork. Should take about 15 to 20 minutes, again depending on what size you cut them. Once they are nice and tender, go ahead and drain them, get all that liquid out of there. Add in 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, a little pinch of cinnamon, it's really to taste. We're also going to go into this with a little bit of maple syrup. You could use brown sugar or honey as well, just to bump up that sweet flavor. And of course season it up with some fresh cracked pepper, a nice pinch of salt. And finally, I'm going to go in with about a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Make sure you wear a nice dark sweater so that when this splatters all over you, it's nice and visible. But in all seriousness, you can always add more cream, but if you get this too liquidy right off the bat, it's no good for anybody. So go ahead and whip that up until it is the texture you desire. By the way, you could just use a potato masher or even a fork if that's all you had, but I think the whipping really gives a nice fluffy texture to the potatoes. Now we'll return our attention to our lovely braised pork chops. We're going to go ahead and remove those from the pot or pan, turn the temperature up to medium-high, and we want to reduce this cooking liquid by about half. Go ahead and stir everything around while we're waiting on it to reduce. Prepare the green onions. Now once that cooking liquid is reduced by about half and is getting a nice glaze texture and consistency, I like to squeeze in the juice of half an orange. Anytime you have a long simmered sauce like that, adding a pop of acidity, whether it's vinegar or the citrus juice at the end, really wakes all the flavors up. So once that's done, go ahead and return the pork to our orange and cider glaze now. Make sure it's nicely coated, and let's plate this up. A couple of nice big spoonfuls of those creamy whipped sweet potatoes. Add one of your delicious tender and shiny glazed pork chops, and you've got to spread over some of that sauce. I like to tuck another little fresh piece of orange on the side for a nice little squeeze right when you're ready to eat, and of course garnish it with our green onions. Clean up that plate, you slob, and let's get ready to eat. So these flavors work so well together. There is a lot of sweetness here in our sweet potatoes, as well as in the orange juice and apple cider from that glaze. Between the soy sauce, the fresh squeezed orange juice, those nice green onions on top, everything really balances out just right. Those pork chops, especially if you get those nice fatty cuts with the bones in there, stay super moist and they get really, really tender. It's just a really delightful bite of food. Gotta make sure you get a bite with everything in there. You see how that meat just breaks apart, super tender. I really hope you'll give this recipe a try. Always, as I say, make it your own, substitute what you need or don't have, but definitely go make something delicious.